Welcome to Beyond the Lift Hill, the podcast where we talk about everything in the world of theme parks.
We're two brothers who live for the thrill and adventure, bringing you reviews and deep dives into the best parks around.
Because every park has a story, and we're here to tell it.
Welcome to Beyond the Lift Hill. I am Alex.
And I'm Adam with Adam's Adventures. You can find us on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram. Okay, Alex, so I know on our first episode you kind of stumped me on some park questions. So here's my question to you. So, Steakhouse 71 at Contemporary at Disney World opened in what year?
What year did the park open?
What year did the park open?
Let's just say, I'll pull a random number. Let's say 1994.
All right, let's try this again. Steakhouse 71.
71. I know the answer to this.
1871?
2071. Sorry.
2071. I think what you mean is 1971.
Okay.
All right. Did you know?
See, I thought it was just because the steaks were $71.
I mean, you're probably closer than you think. For the record, me and my wife were at Disney last year and we dined there. The food was excellent. So next time you're at Disney World, definitely check it out. Two parts to this, though. There was a steakhouse over at Disneyland. It was, I guess you would say, the sister steakhouse. What was its name?
I have no idea. What is it?
So you would have to know what year Disneyland opened.
Yes. And if you tell me that, I'll know the answer.
1955.
It was Steakhouse 55.
You got it.
Yes.
It also closed in July of 2021. So very sad, but, that's how things go. So, Alex, what are we doing today?
Well, we're going to be ranking all of the coasters at Dollywood, your home park.
Cool. I like that.
Yeah, we're going to do... So how many are there? There's 9.
We got 10.
10, okay. I should know this because I made a list. How do you want to do this? Should I give mine and then you give yours and then we talk about it a little bit and we'll just go 10 all the way down to 1?
Sounds like a plan. Let's do that. I've got my list right here on the phone, so you'll see me kind of glancing down, looking up. It's not because I'm ignoring you. It's just that's how we're going to do this.
Okay, sounds good. I'll go ahead and list my first one. So my 10th one would be the Whistle Punk Chaser, and the only reason I listed that at number 10 is because I've never ridden it. It says it's a kid's ride, so I would guess that's number 10 for a lot of people.
Right. You mean the kids' ride's not going to excite you?
Yeah, I think.
Yeah. No, okay. So my number 10 is also Whistle Punk. It's a kid's coaster. You do get to go 3 laps on it. So, at least you're on there a good minute or so. Also, don't sleep on this one. It is a little rough. It will beat you up a little bit. So it's a kid's coaster, but it's not as smooth as Wild Eagle.
Okay.
There you go.
Makes sense.
What's your number 9?
Number 9, I had Fire Chaser Express. It's got a very unique launch. I think the theming's great. The layout's great. It's number 9 because we almost died on this ride. Want to tell the viewers how we almost died on this ride?
Yeah, sure. So on Fire Chaser, and I'll talk about it a little bit later as well, but you kind of go into this old barn-like area. On each side of you, you'll have like some flames that come up, and then it has like this little rocket that if it's standing up, it'll kind of tilt back towards you, acting like it's going to shoot a rocket out at you with some smoke. So we get in there, the fire's going, we're anticipating the rocket coming back, and I can't remember if it did anything or maybe like just a slight tilt, and then everything just stopped. And so how long were we sitting there? Had to be a good 5-10 minutes.
It was 5 or 10 minutes. There were weird sounds happening. I might be imagining this, but it was getting hotter. It's just weird. It was a weird ride. Obviously, we didn't almost die, but so Dollywood, if you're watching this, we did something work. But it felt like that because it was like we were supposed to see some fire and go backwards, and then it just nothing happened.
Right. Yeah, it was kind of a letdown. I will say that's the only time to this point that I've had to be evacuated off of a ride. And actually, I guess technically you wouldn't say evacuated because they did get the ride restarted, I guess you would say. So we got the full ride experience, just kind of broken up into a couple of parts.
Yeah.
So, okay. So, my number nine is Blazing Fury. This park, or I'm sorry, this coaster is the oldest one in the park. It's over 40 years old. It's also the park's only indoor coaster, and it's a dark ride. So, the theming, as you would expect, it's an older ride, has a lot of, older punchlines, kind of stuff that, is a little outdated, but that's what makes it fun as well. So while I have it number nine, I would hate for it to never be there, I guess from a nostalgic standpoint. But this also just goes to show how good the rides are at Dollywood.
I
Something's
was
got
gonna
to be
say,
number one. Something's got to be number 10.
folks at home, like, don't be mad that we're ranking. Like, if we rank your favorite coaster 10th, it's just because we had to give it a ranking, right? We're not saying these are bad rides. It's just this happens to be our 10th favorite or our ninth favorite at the park, but no wrong answer. And
Yeah,
any coaster is better than no coaster.
right. Yeah, all of this is purely subjective.
Yeah.
So yes. Okay, what is your number eight?
My number 8 was Dragonflyer. So I've only ridden this once, but the one time I did ride it, smooth, good pacing, but it's just too short for it to be any higher on the list.
Yeah, I would agree. To that point, my number eight is also Dragon Flyer. It is a suspended coaster, so you kind of get a different feel to it. However, it's only 60 seconds long. A lot of that time is spent on the lift hill. Once you get going, I'd say you probably have a good 35 seconds or so. A lot of good turns, has a decent amount of speed. Some of the parts are very low to the ground, almost to the point to where you feel like you could probably touch the ground with your feet. I'm not sure you can't, or I'm not sure you can, or at
Yeah,
least I can't. But yeah, I mean it's a solid coaster. Another thing about that one is just their time on throughput as far as how many people they can get on and off the ride. They only run one train with it, and I can't think right off the top of my head, but I feel like it can only seat 12,
yeah,
maybe 14. But again, you only have one going, and with the ride only being 60 seconds, you're spending a lot of time loading, unloading. So it's really the one ride in the park where if there's any kind of wait more than 15, 20 minutes, I'm just not going to do it that day.
yeah.
And then when I want to do it, I'll just catch it early on a day before it gets busy.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
What did
So
you
we
have?
have at number seven.
What did you? My number 7. It
Yeah.
was Blazing Fury. So you already mentioned that for you. So number 7 for me, just it is a classic vintage ride, and I think like the theming is really good on it. But other than that, there's not really much more to it. So I couldn't put it higher. It's as high as it is just purely for the theming and how classic of a ride it is at Dollywood.
Right. Yeah, I think just maybe to add a little more information about the coaster, I think coming right off of the launch, it's a pretty good launch if you get on it thinking, okay, this is just going to be a nice, easy launch,
Yeah.
off the platform. It does have a little bit of speed, but once it gets going, I mean, it's pretty much your typical classic layout, I guess you would say. There's not really a lot of excitement going on. There are several times throughout the ride where it kind of slows down and just kind of drops you into the next part of it. And again, not knocking on the ride, it's good. Honestly, it was one of the first coasters at Dollywood that I really enjoyed. Now, back then, I had somewhat of a fear of, you know,
Yeah.
coasters that had inversions, and once I got over that, it's a whole different story. But yeah, all in all, it's a solid coaster. But again, there's a lot of good coasters at Dollywood, so they've all got to be ranked somewhere.
You gotta put them somewhere.
Yep. So we did your number seven.
Yep, Blazing Fury was my 7. What was your?
Okay. So staying on point here, my number seven was Fire Chaser Express. Um,
Okay.
Yeah, and again, just some notes that I had. I was going to talk about the missile and the fire and all that.
Yeah.
So we've already went over that. But kids love it. Now I will say, when Dollywood's really busy, that ride is always going to have a high wait time because most kids that want to do something a little more exciting than whistle punk, um, probably are going to end up on Fire Chaser. Big Bear would also be a ride that they may go to, but I feel like between Big Bear Mountain and Fire Chaser, that's the two coasters that kids really seem to enjoy at that park.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. Okay, so you're number six.
Mystery Mine. So my number six is Mystery Mine. So I think this ride has a bit of an identity crisis. It doesn't know what it wants to be. It's it's either a thrill ride or a family ride, depending on what part of the ride you're on. It has some really cool moments. It's really unique, and for that reason, it's bumped all the way to six. But like the first part of the ride is pretty tame, and then like the second part, you're hung upside down for a little bit. It's a bizarre coaster, and I love it for that reason. But it's yeah, it's kind of like got multiple personalities. What is it?
Right. Yeah, I totally would agree with that. And I'll touch a little more on it later because I've got it a little bit higher than you do. But it's the one thing when people ask me, what is Mystery Mine like? I always say it's weird.
Yeah.
There's no real way to describe it.
Yep.
But it's a weird coaster.
Well, if you remember last time we went, we I had to ride it like two times in a row just to like get a feel for because like the first time we rode it, I was so shocked at like what it was. We had to ride it again so I could actually take it in.
Right.
Um, so it's yeah. I mean, we were fortunate that day that the line for some reason wasn't very long on it. But it's an interesting coaster for sure.
Right, absolutely. Okay, so my number six is Tennessee Tornado. This is the second oldest coaster in the park. It also has on your fill on it. It's either two and a half inversions or three. It has, as the name suggests, it's a tornado theme. One thing that I would caution you about on this ride: do not put your head against the headrest. This
You told me
coaster will
about it.
beat you up. I think it might have got you a little bit, Alex, on your
It
head.
did.
Uh,
You told me that when we first went on it. Yep.
Right. Yeah. Heed the warning. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's my number six. This coaster, it's great. It
Yeah.
could easily be higher on anyone else's list, but,
Yep.
that's where I have it.
Good
So,
one.
you're on number five.
Number five for me is Wild Eagle. So really love this one. I think it's got you have a nice soaring sensation on it, but overall I felt like the layout was pretty bland compared to other like wing coasters that I've done. So Thunderbird I think has a pretty unique layout at Holiday World, and it also has a launch. So just Wild Eagle in comparison to me feels a little more bland, but still a very very good coaster. And if I could ride it right now, I would.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, can't believe you got it so low on your list. My number five is Wild Eagle. So I'll just throw out a few stats here. 21 stories at its highest point. You drop 135 feet. This drops right into an inversion. There's several inversions. I can't remember. I want to say it's four.
Yeah,
I could be wrong. It could be five. I'm not remembering entirely. I haven't been in the park in a few months, and it's starting to mess with me.
yeah,
So there's that. Another fun fact: it was also the first wing coaster in America, even before Thunderbird at Holiday World.
nice.
So yeah, just a little fun fact for
Well,
you
it's the
there.
OG. It's the OG wing coaster.
Exactly. It started it all to borrow a little Disney language.
Yep. There we go. That's great.
Okay, so you're number four.
My number four is Thunderhead. So GCI wooden coaster. What's not to love? It's a great ride. Pretty smooth as far as I can remember. Great scenery. Just really enjoyed the ride. I can't knock it for too much. I mean, honestly, it's just a really solid ride.
Cool. Okay, so my number four is Mystery Mine. Like I said, it's just weird. If you've been on it, you know exactly what I'm talking about. The theming, of course, is you're going through an abandoned coal mine. At the beginning, you kind of have some weird movements on the cart right out of the platform. You kind of have this drop, and then from there, it's just a lot of twists and turns, but it's just I don't know if it's just how the carts tilt
Yeah.
in a certain direction, but it just feels weird. If you've been on Seven Dwarfs Mine Train at Magic Kingdom, not comparing the two, but just the way that those carts kind of move, there's maybe some similarity there.
Well, and the lift hills are straight up. on that.
Right. Yeah,
Very,
you have two shafts that you just go straight up.
my back popped on that ride. So we were we were like in the thing, and then the fact of going straight up caused like my back to pop, and I was like, "That's awesome! I'm getting a chiropractic adjustment as as I'm going on this ride." So
Right. I
uh,
mean, I'm surprised it was just your back that
it's
popped,
just my
you know.
right, yeah.
Right.
Well, I got my neck adjusted on Tennessee Tornado, and I got my back adjusted on Mine Train.
Right. Yeah, makes sense. I mean, there's more to Dollywood than just riding the coasters. I
Or
mean, they're there
Mystery
to help.
Mine Train.
Yeah,
What am I talking about?
they're there to help your health as well. So,
Yeah. Did I
you
just
know,
rename the ride? It's now Mine Train. There's no other. That's I guess what the name is.
right. Yeah. Yeah. Couple other thoughts on it. So you do have a part of the ride where you'll be sitting, and not to give away too much if you've never rode it, but you'll just come to a stop, and then you'll just have like fire just kind of flash at you
Yeah.
before you drop straight down and then go into a longer inversion. You'll do several twists toward the end of the ride. So we've made it to the final three.
There we
What's
go.
up first?
Up first for me is Tennessee Tornado. So I thought that ride, everything you said about it, totally agree. I did think it was surprisingly smooth for what it is, and the scenery I think makes that ride a lot, which is true of a lot of coasters in Dollywood. It's just like the mountains, the just the landscape and the scenery. I think really make that ride. That's where I've got it. Is top three.
Right. Yeah, you mentioned the scenery. I think the lift hill,
Yeah,
right? Like that's probably what you're referring to. Like just going up the lift hill, you can kind of look out to your left, and I mean, you feel like you can see just everything. I mean,
yeah.
obviously not, but that's kind of how it feels. So number three for me, I have Thunderhead. The thing with this coaster is you feel like it kind of starts off slow, start going up the lift hill, takes you a little while to get up there,
Hmm.
but then man, once you start the descent, like it's on. You know, it's just pretty much from that point on, it's just go go go. You have several turns, several twists, a lot of air time. It's just a great wooden coaster. Is it on the same level as something like the Voyage or the other wood coasters at Holiday World? Probably not as intense. You know, my argument, obviously, Dollywood's my home park, so
Hmm.
I would lean toward, just being biased of Thunderhead, just where,
Yeah,
I'm here and I ride it a lot. But to be completely transparent, it's probably a little more tame than what you have at Holiday World, but still a great coaster.
it's a great coaster. Yeah.
Okay, so you're number two.
Number two for me is Big Bear Mountain. So I love uh, everything about that ride. The theming on it is great, and any ride that has multiple launches, I tend to like. So there's a part in the ride where you have the onboard audio, which is great, and they're like, "Let's speed it up" or something like that. I can't remember exactly what the exact line is, but it's phenomenal. And the concept of you hunting a bear, which I guess is a big thing, is good. It's just a great ride. Good family ride, I think too. If you're like, it's one of those that we talked about, like you need rides. I can't remember what we talked about earlier in this episode or maybe on the last episode, but you need rides to help younger ones graduate to like bigger, more intense coasters. And I feel like Big Bear definitely fills a gap there somewhere in the coaster world of like, it's not so intense that someone's gonna get really scared on it and be gun shy against coasters, but it's not so tame that it's not a thrill ride because there's a lot of thrilling moments on it.
Right. Yeah. The onboard audio, so I think it's the part where it says, "Let's go find Big Bear,"
Yep.
or something to that effect. Again, man, I'm telling you, I hadn't been there in a few months. I'm starting to forget things. Like we gotta get back in the parks.
I know. I know.
Yeah. Okay, so my number two is also Big Bear Mountain. In my opinion, you kind of touched on some of this. To me, is it the best coaster in the park? Maybe not. Obviously, I have it at two, so if you're playing along at home, you can probably figure out what both of our number ones are.
Yeah.
But it's definitely the most fun coaster. Kind of like you said, Alex, you have the audio, the scenery, the theming, even in the queue lines. Luckily, another good thing about this ride is you're really not in the queue lines that long unless it's just a really busy day because they run two trains. Their efficiency of getting people on and off the ride is probably the best of any coaster at the park. So I think for all of those reasons, that's why we have it so high. It could easily be number one.
Yeah.
There's you kind of get down to it, and it's like you had to put it two because we obviously both feel like there's something better.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's probably my favorite coaster in the park.
Yeah,
I don't have it as the best coaster, but it's probably my favorite.
yeah.
Maybe. Okay, so what's number one?
My number one is Lightning Rod. Surprisingly, I know everybody was like, "What?" But I guess, and you were talking about the first, like Lightning Rod was the first launched wooden coaster, right? Like it was.
Yes.
I know it doesn't have the launch anymore, and so that should say a lot about the ride right there. Is that they took away like the most unique part about it, and we still think it's the best ride in the park. That should tell you everything you need to know about it. But like, it's just the adrenaline rush when I got off of Lightning Run. We rode it twice. That was one of the ones that we rode twice too, and it was. I mean, just the adrenaline rush. Give it also paired it up with like the scenery, the scenic nature of just where it's at. It's got to be one of the like top thrill rides that I've ridden. Just phenomenal ride. And I know it has its maintenance issues, but looking past all that, it's still great.
Right. Yeah. Kind of touching on what you had said when we were putting our list together. That's kind of why I landed at number one because it's either the third or fourth iteration of the ride. It opened in 2016. As you said, it was the world's first wooden launch coaster since the opening, just because the ride would go down so much. Physics. They tried magnets as far as like trying to get the train up the hill. It just, it was a good idea, probably too ambitious, but hey, I mean, that's, you don't get to the moon if you don't try, right? So yeah, I think for that point they've done a lot of modifying to the ride over the years. Just to throw some stats out there, the peak of the coaster, you'll drop 165 feet. From that point, you come out of that first drop, you got this big bank that you go around. And then toward the end of the ride, you kind of have a triple down, and then you'll do another bank to the right to finish the ride. And then we were talking about the change on the lift hill. So last year, they went from the modified launch
Yeah,
to a more traditional high speed lift chain. So honestly, once you get to the hill, from that point on, I feel like it's the exact same ride. I know
yeah,
some people feel like it took away a little, and maybe it did. I don't know. Depending on where you sit on the cart or in the train, that might make a difference. But I feel like I've sat pretty much everywhere, not every single seat, but definitely front, middle, back. And I think from that point, it's the same ride, but definitely losing the adrenaline of going up the hill at, you know, it's kind of sad, but I understand why they did it. I'm glad they did it because now more people can enjoy it, and I got to ride it. Kind of back when it was the old way with the high speed launch. So
well, I never rode it with the launch. Can you describe that? Was it like, so it launched up the lift hill, but then did it slow down at all at the top before you go down the drop, or was it just like airtime? You just shoot straight. Like, what was it like?
no, it definitely slowed down as you got toward the top, but from a little ways up from the bottom until you got toward the top, it was definitely a launch. I would say maybe compare it to, gosh, I'm trying to think. I hesitate to say maybe something like the first launch out of Big Bear Mountain. I'm not sure it
Hmm.
was quite that intense, but it's been a while now since I rode it that way. But I
Yeah,
feel like let's just say this. I feel like when you say it was a launch, it was a launch.
it was a launch.
I don't think that was just for show. I think it
They
was
didn't get it on a
truly
technicality. Yeah, they didn't get it on a technicality. It was actually a launch.
right. Yeah, so rest in peace, old school lightning rod. Loved it, but I do appreciate the fact that they've done something to make the ride more enjoyable for more people.
Yeah,
Supposedly, this change was supposed to let a large number of people in addition to the amount of people that could normally ride it get on it every year. So
yeah.
I think it's doing the job. Yeah.
Yeah, and you always need trailblazing rides like that, and there will come along another wooden roller coaster that tries to launch, and they'll improve on the design that like that one pioneered, right? And we'll eventually get there. There will eventually be a coaster that does it, and it'll be because Lightning Rod did it first.
Yeah, absolutely. And maybe Dollywood will have that coaster one day.
Maybe Dollywood will have that coaster. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Well,
Well,
that's an excellent list. Yeah.
yeah. Did you have any other things you wanted to talk about?
No, I think that pretty much covers it for everyone listening or watching out there. Drop us your list. If you don't want to do an entire list, just what's your favorite coaster at Dollywood? Maybe what's your least favorite coaster and why?
Yeah, tell us why we're wrong too.
Right.
Rip our list apart. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's great. Well, thanks. Yeah, thanks everybody for listening. And if you don't mind finding us on all the different platforms and giving us a like or a rating, I'll leave a comment, and we'd appreciate it. So for everyone here at Beyond the Lift Hill, thank you for listening. Where is
Yep.
that button? There it is.